The federal government once paid American farmers up to $19.75 per acre to plant a specific species across millions of acres of land throughout the South and Midwest. That same government now funds eradication programs in states across the country, and the entire plant is edible, root to flower. There are 13 plants growing in North American yards, roadsides, and forest edges right now that have fed people continuously for thousands of years. Several of them you have walked past this week without a second thought. Most of them, at some point this season, you have pulled up and discarded. This is what they actually are. Somewhere in this list, one plant scored a perfect 100 out of 100 in a federal nutrient ranking across 47 fruits and vegetables, and most people have never eaten it once. The last plant on this list is one that conservation organizations are now asking people to harvest from national parks on purpose, not to protect it, to reduce it. If that's the kind of content you want more of, subscribing takes 1 second. Let's start. Number 13. Chickweed grows while everything sleeps. While every other plant in your garden is dormant under frost, this one is growing and has been doing exactly this every late winter across the entire continent for thousands of years. It grows close to the ground in spreading mats, with small oval leaves and stems that rarely reach more than a few inches tall. The identifying mark is a thin track of hairs running along each stem, shifting to the opposite side at every leaf junction. Vitamin C, calcium, magnesium, and iron delivered during late winter, when garden beds are empty and fresh greens cost the most. The flavor is mild, somewhere between fresh spinach and tender corn silk, raw in salads, blended, or briefly wilted in butter. Best before flowering. One plant produces around 800 seeds, viable in soil for up to 10 years. English kitchen gardens used it as a reliable winter salad when nothing else would grow. Settlers carried it to North America, and it naturalized across the continent. It comes back every late winter on its own. Number 12. Wood Sorrel. Lemon flavor, no tree. Most people have mistaken it for clover and walked past it every summer, which is unfortunate because it tastes like lemon. Wood sorrel spreads in a low mat across shaded beds and garden edges, its leaves in clusters of 3 small heart-shaped pieces. At nightfall, those leaves fold along their center, a response to cold and falling dew. Small yellow flowers appear in summer, followed by seed pods that release their contents when disturbed. The sourness comes from oxalic acid, the same compound that gives spinach and rhubarb their edge, safe in ordinary quantities. The flavor is bright, citrusy, close to fresh lemon. Some botanists argue that wood sorrel, not the standardized modern shamrock, was the 3-leafed plant St. Patrick used in 5th century Ireland to explain the Trinity. Indigenous peoples across North America used the leaves on long journeys. John Gerard, the 16th century English herbalist, recorded it specifically as a cooling summer ingredient. Chefs pay foragers to bring it to tasting menus. It grows in the shaded corner of most yards. Number 11. Plantain followed every settler's boot. Native American tribes called it white man's footprint because it appeared, without fail, wherever European settlers went. The leaves form a flat rosette against the ground, tough, oval, with thick, parallel ridges tracing the length of each one. A central spike rises and releases seeds that attach to shoes, clothing, and animal fur. Broadleaf plantain grows in compacted soil, cracked pavement, and worn-down paths, the ground that human traffic makes. 2 compounds documented in peer-reviewed research give the plant its long history in wound care: aucubin and allantoin, both studied for anti-inflammatory and tissue-healing effects. Leaf poultices were pressed against wounds, stings, and rashes in European herbalism for centuries. The same use traveled with the settlers who spread the plant across the continent. Spring leaves are mild and slightly earthy, edible, raw or cooked, best taken before the plant stiffens in summer. The seeds open a different angle. Botanically, they belong to the same family as psyllium, the ingredient in the fiber supplements that fill pharmacy shelves across North America. That ingredient grows in the compacted soil near most driveways right now. Number 10. violet. More vitamin C than oranges. Every April, millions of North American yards fill with purple, violet flowers, and nearly every person who sees them takes a photo, then walks past. Viola sororia, the common blue violet, is the most widely spread species across the eastern half of the continent. Heart-shaped leaves, 5-petaled flowers in purple, blue, or white, low-growing in lawn edges and woodland margins. The flowers and young leaves both go directly into food. The nutritional case isn't minor. Wild violet leaves carry more vitamin C per gram than oranges. Significant vitamin A is present as well. The USDA's own nutritional database records the wild violet as a genuine food source, not an incidental one. Violets were in Roman kitchens. Medieval European cooks used them fresh and preserved. Syrup of violets was a commercial apothecary product until the 19th century, a standardized preparation, not a folk remedy. In Appalachia and across the American South, violet jelly is a documented tradition. The taste runs closer to honey than to anything floral. The flowers work fresh in salads or crystallized as a confection. Leaves can be sautéed or used to thicken soups. They contain mucilage, a natural substance that makes them behave like a mild thickener. Crystallized violets and violet syrup appear at specialty grocers. The plant producing both is in most yards, free, for 6 weeks every spring. Number 9. Clover. Farmed before fertilizer existed. Before synthetic nitrogen fertilizers existed, farmers planted clover deliberately to bring depleted fields back to life. So when did it become something to eliminate? Red clover sends up dense pink-purple flower heads on upright stems compact, roughly the width of a large thumb. White clover spreads lower, its pale blooms attracting bees through warm summer afternoons. Both species fix nitrogen. Their underground root networks harbor bacteria that convert atmospheric nitrogen into a form the soil can absorb and use. Farmers relied on this for centuries. Agricultural manuals from 18th and 19th century Britain and colonial America documented clover as a standard rotation crop for rebuilding depleted ground. After World War II, synthetic nitrogen fertilizers made that function economically unnecessary. The reclassification followed the economics. The flowers are edible, sweet and mildly nutty good fresh in salads or steeped into tea. Young leaves work in small quantities, briefly blanched to improve texture. Seeds sprout indoors in 4 days, producing fresh greens year-round without requiring a garden bed. The nitrogen-fixing root system is still working beneath every patch of clover you have growing, season after season, without any effort from you. Red clover flowers contain isoflavone compounds. Research into their potential effects on menopausal symptoms, bone density, and cardiovascular health is ongoing. Findings vary by individual. Herbal retailers carry dried blossoms. They are flowering in most lawns right now. Number 8. Lamb's quarters. Quinoa's ancestor in disguise. Lamb's quarters and quinoa belong to the same plant family, and the seeds dropped by the plant currently edging your raised beds can be cooked the same way. It grows upright with pale green leaves, their undersides carrying a dusty, powdery coating that creates a silver-green shimmer in sunlight. Most people read this as a sign the plant is unhealthy. It isn't. Lamb's quarters establishes itself in disturbed soil specifically, the kind that surrounds raised garden beds and freshly prepared borders. It settles into the spaces you've already worked. Seeds found in the stomach of a preserved body at a Danish bog burial site, dated to approximately 300 BC, confirmed 2,000 years of human use before European settlers arrived. Native communities across the Great Plains and Southwest ground the dried seeds into flour, more protein per serving than spinach. Significant calcium, iron, and vitamins A and C. The taste is mild and earthy, closer to Swiss chard. Cook it like spinach, it wilts the same way. That mildness is not accidental. Commercial spinach breeding progressively reduced oxalate content and intensified the sweetness over decades. Lamb's quarters was never part of that process. What you're eating is the pre-commercial baseline of that flavor range. The plant edging your beds right now belongs to the same family as the quinoa you're buying to eat beside it. Number 7. Watercress, ranked first. Location matters. In a CDC study ranking 47 fruits and vegetables by nutrient density across 17 key vitamins and minerals, watercress scored a perfect 100, placing it ahead of spinach, kale, and every other green on the list. It grows in cold running water, dense floating mats of dark green leaves along the edges of streams and spring-fed creeks. Crush a single leaf and the smell registers immediately. Sharp, fresh, unmistakably peppery, rich in vitamins K, C, and A. It also contains isothiocyanates, compounds that peer-reviewed research has connected to cellular health. Roman legions carried watercress on long campaigns. In 1800s England, street vendors sold bundles of wild watercress as a breakfast food. For working families, affordable, available, and nutritionally dense before a 12-hour day. It was among the first salad crops commercially cultivated in the United States. The CDC ranking is accurate. Where you collect it determines whether eating it raw is a decision you have actually thought through. Watercress grows in flowing water. Streams passing through or near livestock pasture can carry Fasciola hepatica, a liver parasite. The WHO has documented as one of the more common food-borne parasitic infections in regions where cattle and sheep graze near water. There is no visible difference between a contaminated plant and a clean one. Waterways with no upstream grazing, commercially sold watercress, and spring-fed sources with verifiable clean origins are straightforward. 60 seconds at a full boil removes the risk entirely. The nutrient score is real. The source is the variable the ranking doesn't address. Number 6. Chicory. Your roadside is Belgian endive. Every summer, across rural North America, the same sky blue flowers line country roads from July through October. And most people have never connected what those flowers are to what appears on a restaurant plate. Chicory grows tall, with stiff branching stems and deeply lobed basal leaves. The flowers are a striking cornflower blue, opening only in morning sunlight and closing by early afternoon. They're mildly sweet and fully edible. The link to commercial food is botanical fact. Belgian endive, sold at $6 to $12 per pound at specialty grocers, is chicory, developed through selective cultivation in Belgium beginning in the 1840s. The radicchio in restaurant salads is a red-leafed cultivar of the same species. Same plant. Different growing conditions, different name, different price. When coffee imports into France were cut off during World War II rationing, roasted chicory root became the standard substitute. The practice predated the war by centuries. The shortage made it visible on a national scale. In New Orleans, chicory-blended coffee has been a documented regional tradition since the Civil War era and remains so today. Chicory root contains inulin, a prebiotic fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria. It is one of the more thoroughly studied prebiotics in nutritional research and is widely used as a fiber additive in the commercial food industry. Young spring leaves are noticeably bitter raw, precisely the quality that made cultivated varieties worth the investment to develop. The root roasts and grinds into a caffeine-free substitute with a smooth, earthy character. The plant on the roadside and the endive in the produce case are the same organism. Number 5. Stinging nettle. Pain disappears. Nutrition doesn't. What is a plant that causes immediate pain on contact doing on a list of things worth eating? By midsummer, stinging nettle grows in dense patches 4 to 6 feet tall. The leaves are oval and deeply serrated. The fine hairs covering each surface are hollow needles on contact with bare skin. They inject a combination of histamine and formic acid. Brush a forearm across a fresh patch, and the sensation holds for hours. No agricultural breeding program ever had an economic reason to remove that sting. The plant growing in a ditch or along a fence line is biologically unchanged from what people were handling 10,000 years ago. During World War I, The British naval blockade severed German cotton supply routes. Nettle fiber was harvested and woven into military uniforms as a direct replacement, not as an emergency improvisation. But because the plant was already integrated into European material use at scale, Bronze Age cloth made from nettle fiber has been recovered at archaeological sites in Denmark. The nutritional case is equally direct. High in iron, calcium, magnesium, and vitamins A and C, with more protein per serving than most cultivated leafy greens. The sting disappears completely with heat. 60 seconds in boiling water renders the plant safe, tender, and deeply flavored, earthy and mineral-rich, in a range that commercially grown spinach doesn't reach. Use it in soups, stirred through pasta, or as a wilted green alongside meat. Spring shoots, taken with gloves, are the most tender and mildest. Freeze-dried nettle powder is sold in supplement form at health food retailers. The source plant is growing in disturbed ground at the edges of most rural properties right now. Number 4. Dandelion. That bottle is your yard. Dandelion has been in continuous scientific study for decades, and the concentrated extract of those studies is currently sold in health food stores for $15 to $20 a bottle. The plant is the most immediately recognized in North America. The taproot runs 18 inches into the ground. Pull the plant without removing the full root, and it returns. It produces from April through October without any intervention at all. European settlers brought dandelion to North America in the 1600s as a deliberate food and medicine crop. They carried it across the Atlantic with intention. It was a cultivated plant before it ever became a lawn problem. A handful of leaves contains more beta-carotene than a carrot, and enough vitamin K to cover several times the daily requirement. Every part of the plant is usable: leaves, flowers, root. The taproot, dried and ground, makes a caffeine-free substitute with a roasted, slightly rounded flavor. Young spring leaves are the mildest. Flowers fry well in batter or steep into wine. The bitterness comes from taraxacin, a compound in the sesquiterpene lactone family. The 20th century was, in significant part, a project to remove that category of compound from food. Modern iceberg lettuce was specifically developed to reduce lactucin, a closely related compound found in wild lettuce, Lactuca virosa, which European herbalists used for centuries as a mild sedative. The breeding process produced a vegetable with almost none of the original bioactive material intact. The compounds that got removed did not disappear. Pharmaceutical companies extract them, concentrate them, and sell them back in capsule form. Taraxacin is available that way right now. Dandelion was never put through the domestication process that took it out. The bitterness you taste in a dandelion leaf is the compound someone is currently pricing at $18 in a brown glass bottle. That bottle and the front yard, producing the same source material, are 50 feet apart for most people who will watch this. Number 3. Purslane. Highest omega-3. Gets composted. There is a plant that spreads flat and wide across bare soil, sends out thick reddish stems, and produces paddle-shaped fleshy leaves, and it holds the highest recorded levels of omega-3 fatty acid, content of any leafy green measured in the published nutritional literature. It grows in a low, spreading mat. The stems are thick and deep red. The leaves are fleshy, almost juicy when broken. The plant stores water the way a desert plant does, which is exactly why it appears in the hottest, driest patches of a summer garden, in the corners where other things stop growing. The nutritional data is specific. Purslane contains the highest levels of alpha-linolenic acid, an essential omega-3 fatty acid of any leafy green studied in the research record. 6 times more vitamin E than spinach, 7 times more beta-carotene than carrots. Ancient Egypt, Persia, Greece, and Rome all have documented records of it as ordinary food. Pliny the Elder, the Roman naturalist, recorded it as both a common food and a medicine in the 1st century. Mahatma Gandhi listed it among his regular foods during periods of fasting. It has never left the table in Mexico, Turkey, Lebanon, or across the Mediterranean region. Only in North American suburbs did it get reclassified as something to pull out and throw away. In Greece, it appears in salads under the name glistrida. Turkish and Lebanese kitchens use it as a standard summer green, the same plant, coming out of the same type of soil, treated in two completely different ways depending on which side of an ocean you are on. The flavor is mild and slightly tangy, with a crunch that holds up in salads. The stems pickle well in vinegar. The best harvesting ground is open and sunny. For anyone eating it regularly in large quantities, pairing with calcium-rich foods is worth noting for managing its oxalate content. Omega-3 capsules are among the largest selling categories in North American pharmacies. The plant producing that fatty acid is growing in most garden beds during the exact same months the capsules are being purchased. Number 2. Kudzu. Paid to plant, now banned. The plant, referenced in the opening of this video, the one the federal government is currently spending millions to eliminate, was within living memory, being subsidized by the same government for farmers to grow. The Dust Bowl of the 1930s stripped topsoil from millions of acres across the American South and Midwest. The U.S. Soil Conservation Service identified kudzu as an effective solution for holding exposed ground in place. The federal government paid farmers up to $19.75 per acre to put it in the ground. The Civilian Conservation Corps planted it across millions of acres throughout the southeastern United States. By 1953, the agricultural calculus had shifted. The USDA moved kudzu to its weed designation list. By 1997, it was formally listed under the Federal Noxious Weed Act, Public Law 93-629, the first federal legislation to create a specific legal category for plants deemed problematic at a national level. The plant's biology did not change between 1940 and 1997. The Weed Science Society of America defines a weed as any plant that is injurious to human activities or welfare, not toxic, not nutritionally empty, not structurally unusual, inconvenient within a specific economic or agricultural context. By that definition, the same plant can be a federally subsidized crop in one decade and a federally designated noxious weed in the next. The category is a regulatory decision, not a biological one. In Japan, kudzu starch has been used for centuries as a cooking thickener and in traditional medicine. Kudzu root extract is sold in the United States as a commercial supplement. The root appears in preparations across East Asian cuisines. The edible portions are substantial. Young leaves, shoots, and flower buds are mild-flavored and straightforward. Leaves wrap rice or other fillings the same way grape leaves do. The flowers carry a fragrance that sits close to fresh grapes and produce a clean jelly. Kudzu is established across the southeastern United States and expanding into the mid-Atlantic, parts of the Midwest, and southern Canada. In regions where it grows, supply is not the problem. Harvest from areas with no herbicide application history. Number 1. Garlic mustard. Alliaria petiolata. Forest managers across the eastern United States and Canada are working through the math of how much herbicide it takes to control one plant across an entire continent. And conservation organizations in the Great Lakes and Northeast have arrived at a different answer. The plant in the opening of this video is this one. In its first year, garlic mustard grows as a low rosette against the ground, easy to overlook, easy to step over without registering. In its second year, it rises to 3 or 4 feet, producing triangular toothed leaves and clusters of small, white, 4-petaled flowers. Crush any part of it, and the identification is immediate. Raw garlic, green and sharp, with a faint edge of mustard underneath, completely unmistakable. Pottery residue recovered from archaeological sites in Denmark and northwestern Germany places garlic mustard in use as a seasoning as far back as 4100 BC, making it the earliest documented culinary herb in Northern Europe, predating most of the herbs currently sold in grocery stores by thousands of years. European settlers brought it to North America in the 1860s as a familiar cooking ingredient. The first confirmed sighting in the United States was recorded in 1868 on Long Island, New York. Without the insects and fungal diseases that kept its growth in check across Europe, it moved through forest understories across a continent within a century. The reason it spreads so effectively is chemical. Garlic mustard releases compounds into the soil that suppress mycorrhizal fungi, the underground networks, that native forest plants depend on to exchange water and nutrients. It outcompetes native wildflowers for light and space. Its expansion is one of the more thoroughly documented ongoing ecological disruptions in the forests of eastern North America. Conservation organizations in the Great Lakes region and the Northeast now organize community harvesting events specifically, aimed at reducing its presence in parks and nature preserves. The equipment is a bag. The tool is a pair of hands. This is the only plant on this list where the act of eating it is also a direct contribution to forest recovery. The flavor is exactly what the name indicates: garlic and mild mustard greens together. Young spring leaves are the most tender and the quietest in flavor. As the season moves forward, a pleasant depth settles in. Blend into pesto. Add fresh to salads and dressings. Use as a pot herb alongside meat, or grind the dried seeds as a mustard substitute. Every dollar spent on herbicide targeting it covers the same ground a forager covers for free and leaves a meal behind. None of these plants changed. What changed was what we decided to call them, what we decided to see when we looked at them, and what we decided to do when they showed up without being invited. The category of weed is younger than the plants it describes and considerably less permanent. If that shift in perspective is useful to you, there is more of it here. Every video on this channel starts with something most people already walked past and ends with a reason they will never look at it the same way again. Subscribing means you will see the next one. Which of these did you already know was edible, and which one surprised you most? Put it in the comments.